අද්විතීය 200 Mbps ස්පීඩ් එකකින් ශ්‍රී ලංකාවේ වේගවත්ම සහ පුළුල්තම හෝම් බ්‍රෝඩ්බෑන්ඩ් සම්බන්ධතාවය වන SLT මොබිටෙල් දේශීය ෆයිබර් බලවේගය ඔබත් අදම අත්විඳින්න.
හරිම සුදුයි.
Tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday, the 4th of April 2023. Reforms to state enterprises are being carried out with parliamentary and cabinet approval. State Minister of Finance clarifies in Parliament. Bill to decriminalise same-sex conduct presented to House.
With this bill, we hope to contribute to the long-term objective of supporting and empowering LGBTQ plus people.
Conflict of interest. The new anti-terrorism bill restricts the right to freedom of expression of the people. Cardinal calls government to uphold the judiciary, democracy and the rule of law.
However, perusing through the contents of the proposed legislation, it is more than apparent that the cure is worse than the disease.
Policy stance. Central bank keeps key policy rates unchanged. Says reserves estimated at $2.7 billion at end March. CBSA chief reiterates Sri Lanka can complete debt restructuring process with both bilateral and commercial creditors before next IMF review. Festive spirit. Sri Lanka to enhance fuel quota ahead of the Sinhala and Tamil New Year. Quota for cars to be raised from 20 litres at present to 30 litres.
Alliance Finance මෙතුරු රන්නයි සේවාවෙන් රන් පවුම්කට රුපියල් 1,70,000ක ඉහළ අධිකාරමත්.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දිනු සෙන්සුරයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9 with Indivadi Amuata. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
And a warm welcome. We take you straight to your top stories from across Sri Lanka and around the world tonight. With the opposition quizzing the government's mandate to sell state-owned enterprises, State Minister of Finance Ranjith Siyamalapitiya today clarified in Parliament that reforms to state-owned enterprises are being implemented following the approval of Parliament and the Cabinet of Ministers. In the meantime, Speaker of Parliament Mahindayapa Abhiwardena announced the Supreme Court determination of the new central bank draft bill that the bill is consistent with the Constitution and that it can be passed in Parliament with a simple majority. Meanwhile, SLPP parliamentarian Premnath Dolawatta presented a private member's bill to amend Section 365A and B of the Penal Code to decriminalise same-sex conduct.
At the beginning of today's parliamentary session, Speaker of Parliament Mahindayapa Abhiwardena announced the Supreme Court determination on the new central bank draft bill.
Bill are inconsistent with the Constitution. Accordingly, the court has determined that the bill can be passed by a simple majority in Parliament, subject to the amendments which have been mentioned in the determination.
රාජ්‍යසතු ව්‍යාපාර ප්‍රතිහෝගත කිරීමේ ඒකකයේ විසින් අදාළ ආයතනවල ප්‍රධාන නිලධාරීන් සහ අනිකුත් පාර්ශ්වකරුවන් සමග මූලික සාකච්ඡාවක් කිරීමෙන් හා මූලික අධ්‍යයනයක් කිරීමෙන් පසුව ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම් PLC ප්‍රමුඛතා පදනම මත ඉවත් කිරීමට හඳුනාගෙන ඇත. එසේම ශ්‍රී ලංකා ටෙලිකොම් ආයතනය ප්‍රතිහෝගත කිරීමෙන් සපයා ගන්නු ලබන අරමුදල් වෙනත් අවස්ථාවන්හි ආයෝජනය කර ඉන් ප්‍රතිලාභ රටට ලබා ගැනීමට අවස්ථාව හිමි වේ. රජය විසින් අත්‍යවශ්‍ය නොවන ව්‍යාපාර කටයුතු සඳහා මැදිහත් වීම අවම කිරීමට හා රාජ්‍ය ව්‍යවසාය ප්‍රතිහෝගත කිරීමට ගනු ලැබූ ප්‍රතිපත්තිමය තීරණයක් මත ලංකා හොස්පිටල් ආයතනය සම්බන්ධව මෙම පියවර ගැනීමට අපේක්ෂා කෙරේ. ලංකා හොස්පිටල් PLC ප්‍රමුඛතා පදනම මත ඉවත් කිරීමට හඳුනාගෙන ඇත.
ලාභ ලබන රාජ්‍ය ආයතන විකිණීම සෞභාග්‍යයේ ඉදිරි දැක්මේ ප්‍රතිඵලයක් හැටියට මේක ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නේ. මේ ආයතන මේ විදියට විකුණන්න ඔබතුමාලට ජනවරමක් නැහැ.
පහුගිය මේ අයවැය ලේඛනයේ 41 රාජ්‍ය ව්‍යවසාය ප්‍රතිහෝගතකරණය ඉතාම පැහැදිලිව තියෙනවා. කැබිනට් මණ්ඩලය අනුමත කරලා මේ මහා ගරු සභාවේ අනුමැතිය ඇතිව තමයි මේවා ක්‍රියාත්මක වෙන්නේ.
දැන් රට බංකොලොත් කරපු ආණ්ඩුව අපෙන් අහනවා විසඳුම මොකක්ද කියලා. ප්‍රජාතන්ත්‍රවාදයේ මෙහෙම තත්ත්වයක් ආණ්ඩුවක් රට බංගලොත් කිරවලා දාලා යන්න ඕන. දැන් ඔච්චර හොඳට වැඩ යන්න ඕන ඡන්දයක් තියන්නකෝ.
I am speaking today on behalf of the private members bill that decriminalizes consensual same-sex marriage, same sexual relations in the country. The bill was initially submitted to the Parliament in August 2022. The ruling government announced its support for the repealed section 365 and 365A of the Penal Code, as well as the opposition leader himself agreed on this. We had to change regarding this, which penalizes acts of the gross indecency between persons. An amendment act in order to amend the legal provisions within the country's penal code with the aim of protecting the rights of LGBTQ communities. The same-sex relations are still criminalized under the Sri Lanka's penal code. In several occasions, Sri Lanka's code we aim to adopt the necessary policies in favor of LGBTQ community while continuing to strengthen its capacity to support transgender people. They request the support of the government-related institutions along with the strong assistance of foreign countries. With this bill, we hope to contribute to the long-term objective of supporting and empowering LGBTQ plus people being able to live without fear, discrimination or harassment based on their sexual orientation and gender identities or expressions. Therefore, Honourable Deputy Speaker, I present the Penal Code Amendment Bill to the House.
Now, the Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjit, voices concern over government's new anti-terrorism bill to replace the existing Prevention of Terrorism Act. Cardinal Ranjit termed it worse than the act that is currently in force, as the new bill seeks to repress the people's expression by determining protests carried out by essential services sector as terrorism.
The present government of Sri Lanka has gazetted the bill entitled Anti-Terrorism Bill 2023 on the 17th March, which seeks to abolish the said PTA and introduce an anti-terrorism act in order to apply as a counter-terrorism legislation. However, perusing through the contents of the proposed legislation, it is more than apparent that the cure is worse than the disease. The new bill contains several offences, some of which raise serious concern for the freedom of expression, thereby giving the state an additional tool to crack down on dissent and criticism. A major concern also arises with regard to detention orders. The bill makes no change to the provisions of the PTA, allowing the detention order to be long for 3 months, even if there is no substance to this allegation. Detention orders can thereafter be extended beyond the initial 3 months up to 1 year. However, that must be done through a magistrate. And in any case, what is grave is that the President is authorized at his discretion to proscribe any organization that he feels is prejudicial to the national security of Sri Lanka or any other country. Therefore, he has been given tremendous authority in this matter without proper checks and balances being inserted into the Act. Among the many provisions that are contrary to human dignity in this anti-terrorism bill, there is a provision that would allow for the prosecution of anyone who may make representation to any international organization against decisions of the rulers. It is an offence to compel an international organization to get involved in local issues. Equally disturbing is the defining of obstruction to essential services as an act of terrorism, 32F, such as health and medical services. This means that all those in the health and medical service sector will not be able to go on strike for their just rights. Taking all of the said into consideration, a grave concern would arise that the application of the said anti-terrorism bill would impose direct threats on the sovereignty of the people enshrined by our Constitution. A threat to the fundamental rights guaranteed to our citizens, risk of causing a disruption in the maintenance of the rule of law and the doctrine of the separation of powers in this country, and accordingly not even be compliant with the international law obligations. Therefore, it is our view that at a time when Sri Lanka is pursuing a path of rebuilding the nation, it is critical that the rule of law, the independence of the judiciary and democracy in this nation should be necessarily defended and upheld selflessly without making any legislation which in fact casts doubt on the genuine intentions of the government in the repealing of Prevention of Terrorism Act. All those who will vote for this law are people who will act against the interests of the public.
The existing fuel quota will be increased for the New Year festive season with effect from midnight tonight. With that, cars will receive a weekly fuel quota of 30 litres. According to the President's Media Division, as previously announced, it has also been decided that the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has ordered and received necessary fuel stocks, taking the increasing demand for the festive season into account.
Taking the rising fuel demands during the Sinhala and Tamil New Year into account, the government has made a decision to increase the existing weekly fuel quota under the QR code system with effect from midnight today. The President's Media Division said the Ceylon Petroleum Corporation has ordered and received the necessary fuel stocks for the purpose. Accordingly, the fuel quotas for cars, vans and special purpose vehicles will be increased from 20 litres to 30 litres. Fuel quota for buses will be raised from 40 litres to 60 litres, while a fuel quota of 75 litres will be given to lorries from its existing 25 litres. Quota for land vehicles will increase from 15 litres to 25 litres, while quota for quadric cycles will be raised from 4 litres to 6 litres. The motorcycles, which is currently entitled for 4 litres, will see its quota raised for 7 litres. Three-wheelers that belongs to the special category will receive a 15-litre weekly quota, while the three-wheelers that falls under the general category will be entitled for 8 litres.
State-run Litro Gas Lanka Limited, the country's largest provider of liquefied petroleum gas cylinders to the market, has decided to increase its 12.5 kilogram cylinder by 1,005 rupees to 3,738 rupees. Laughs Gas too reduced the price of its 12.5 kilogram cylinder to 1,290 by 1,290 to 3,990 per cylinder.
Litro Gas Lanka Limited slashed the price of its domestic liquefied petroleum gas cylinders today based on the pricing formula. Thereby, the price of a 12.5 kilogram domestic gas cylinder has been reduced by 1,005 rupees, making the new price 3,738 rupees. The price reduction is effective from midnight today. As such, the price of a 5 kilogram cylinder was reduced by 402 rupees to 1,502 rupees. The 2.3 kilogram cylinder was meanwhile reduced by 183 rupees to 700 rupees. In the meantime, Laughs Gas PLC too reduced the prices of its domestic gas cylinders as well. Accordingly, the price of a 12.5 kilogram cylinder was reduced by 1,290 rupees to 3,990 rupees. The 5 kilogram cylinder meanwhile was reduced by 516 rupees to 1,596 rupees.
The Cabinet has approved basic salary payment for government officials who went on no-pay leave to run for the local government election, which was earlier scheduled for the 9th of March. Cabinet spokesperson Minister Dr. Bandula Gunawardena said some 3,000 government employees have gone on no-pay leave in line with the establishment code, and they will be paid basic salaries due to elections being postponed. The Cabinet has also granted approval for the proposal to include a further 850,000 families to join the program to receive a 10 kilogram packet of rice a month for 2 months.
The Cabinet announced today that it had granted approval to a proposal by the President to include additional 850,000 low-income families that were on the waiting list for the Cabinet-approved program to provide 10 kilograms of rice per family for a period of 2 months to 2 million low-income families.
2022-23 මහකන්නේදී අඩු ආදායම් ලබන පවුල් මිලියන 2ක් සඳහා එක පවුලකට මාසකට සහල් කිලෝ 10 බැගින් මාස 2ක කාල සීමාවක් ලබා දීම පිණිස අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලයේ අනුමැතිය ලැබුණා. ඒ සඳහා අනුමත බිලියන 10ක අයවැය ප්‍රතිපාදන වලින් බිලියන 13 දක්වා වැඩි කරන්නට ජනාධිපතිතුමා යෝජනාවක් කළා. ඒට කැබිනට් අනුමැතිය ලබා දුන්නා. ඊට පසුව 2023 යලකන්නේ වී වගාව සඳහා පොර සපයා ගැනීම සඳහා හෙක්ටයාරයකට රුපියල් 20000 බැගින් වනසේ හෙක්ටයාර් දෙකක් සඳහා මූල්‍ය සහනාධාරයක් ගොවින් වෙත ලබා දීමට අමාත්‍ය මණ්ඩලයේ අනුමැතිය ලබා දුන්නා.
In the meantime, the health system enhancement project is being implemented with funds amounting to $123 million provided by the Asian Development Bank, Japan Fund for Poverty Reduction and the Sri Lankan government contribution. The Cabinet green light was given to expedite the procurement procedure to purchase 50 ambulances using funds from the Asian Development Bank and 25 using the grant under the Japan Fund for Poverty Reduction. 30 of these ambulances will be handed over to the Ministry of Health and the remaining 45 to the Susare Foundation. Meanwhile, 4 bids have been received for a computer software solution for optimizing the income generation of the national carrier Sri Lankan Airlines. The Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal submitted by the Minister of Ports, Shipping and Aviation to award the procurement for $3.2 million for 5 years to Pros Incorporated Company of the United States in accordance with the recommendations of the Cabinet-appointed Standing Procurement Committee. The Cabinet also approved to pay the basic salary of the government officials who have submitted nominations to contest the local government elections and on no-pay leave as per provisions of the Establishment Code. Due to the postponement of the local government elections extending the duration of no-pay leave for about 3,000 government officers contesting the polls, their basic salaries will be paid from March 9 to the 25th of April.
The Court of Appeal, meanwhile, issued an interim order suspending the implementation of a decision taken by the Cabinet to reduce the mandatory retirement of government nurses to 60 years. An appeal court bench comprising President of the Court of Appeal, Justice Nisanka Bandula Karunaratne and Justice A. Marika issued this order after considering the petitions filed by a group including the Public Service United Nurses Union. The petitioners claim as unlawful the recent decision taken by the Cabinet of Ministers to make it mandatory for nurses to retire at the age of 60, indicating that they are capable of remaining in employment until the age of 63. The Court of Appeal issued the interim order until the hearing of the petition concludes. Minister of Public Administration Dinesh Gunawardena, Secretary to the Ministry of Public Administration, the Cabinet of Ministers, the President's Secretary and the Attorney General have been named as respondents in the petition. While the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka decides to maintain the standard deposit facility rate and lending rate at their current levels, Central Bank Chief makes optimistic statements.
ගොඩමඩ පෙරලි කරන බලපුළුවන්කාරයා මහින්ද්‍රා යුවෝ ටීමෝ වෙතින්.
Apico Super Center, Arudu Super Shopper. Amazing 50% discounts. Shop for 7,500 rupees or more with an Apico Privilege card, including 5 nominated brands.
Let's go! Apico Super Center.
ශක්තිමත් මෙන්ම විශාලතම රාජ්‍ය රක්ෂණ ආයතනයක් වීම අපට මහත් අභිමානයක්. වසර 60කට අධික විශිෂ්ටත්වය රුපියල් බිලියන 274.6ක වත්කම් 190කට අධික ශාඛාජාලය රුපියල් බිලියන 158ක ජීවිත රක්ෂණ අරමුදලක් ශ්‍රී ලංකා ඉන්ෂුරන්ස්.
And taking you to business news, the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka decided to maintain the standing deposit facility rate and the standing lending facility rate of the Central Bank at their current levels of 15.50% and 16.50% respectively. Addressing media on the monetary policy review, Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe said they aim to finalise the debt restructuring process soon, even before the next progress review of the International Monetary Fund.
What sort of progress have we made in restructuring bilateral debt to individual creditors?
As you know, bilateral for the IMF program, we got the financing assurances and then we made the presentation to all the bilateral commercial public presentation. On that basis, we continue to have engagement going forward with parallelly both with commercial creditors as well as bilateral creditors. We will move in that direction the way that we presented in that presentation.
In terms of exchange rate, when you are collecting the reserves, you have to meet this NIR targets. What is the policy in purchasing dollars? How do you go about it?
Whenever we see liquidity availability in the market, we enter in and purchase. In the last couple of days, we purchase because when there's a situation, liquidity availability, we purchase. We use the opportunity to build our positions.
Governor, is there any time frame for the debt restructuring in line with the IMF framework?
We want to complete the debt restructuring process as soon as possible. That's why we announced this, made the presentation. Then from that point onwards, we will continue to engage with both bilateral and official and commercial creditors, and we want to finish it early.
Is there any time frame given by the IMF?
No, it's up to us. We'll take our own time and finish it off. Sooner the better.
How do you plan to bring down inflation to single-digit levels by the end of the
year.
There's a very clear favorable base effect that will kick in from next month. I think why last 2 months it was bit of a rate of inflation was steady. Actually, our prediction earlier was the last month inflation was supposed to be a little higher than January, was higher than February because of the impact on the electricity tariff hike, the one-off increase, and then our prediction was that after that it would come down. But outcome was much more favorable than what our predictions. Next month, inflation would be sharply down compared to last 2 months. Then that trend will continue. Disinflation trend will continue. Deceleration will be faster, partly because of the favorable baseline impact. And secondly, some of the prices also, for example, now currency appreciation and some of the reduction in fuel, gas also will help a faster deceleration. So this is why we are confident that inflation will come down to single-digit levels by in December.
The president had said that he's confident in finalizing a debt restructuring deal by the next review of the IMF. How confident are you on the statement?
I think we won't do it even before.
There was a request from the IMF that our expectation that the import bans will be gradually relaxed. How confident are you on that, and how do you see the pressure on the exchange rate when the import?
No, if you look at the commitment in the IMF, the papers published, it is that I think by 30th of June we have to have a plan how we phase out going forward on a gradual basis. So we have some more time to determine how fast, how soon we can phase out over a period of time from June onwards. So I think how the pressure, the demand, growth, the recovery and best supply situation. So we have time actually. So I think it's too early for us to announce a plan to phase out all these things. I think, but it's obviously it's not our decision. Minister of Finance will determine. We have seen recently some of the items have been already, they have been removing those items gradually, some of the items. That will happen gradually, I think, on the need basis, I think, by the Minister of Finance.
The Colombo bourse continued to record losses for a second straight day as investor participation remained weak amidst the holiday-shortened week. Now, the SPI moved on a downward trajectory throughout the session and closed in negative territory at 9,174, losing 63 cents. However, during the day, Treasury counters saw renewed activity following a plunge in yields in the secondary market. Banking and diversified financial sector counters traded actively despite low volumes, and foreign activity relatively improved during the session. Market turnover slightly improved to 768.3 million rupees compared to yesterday. Overall activity remained subdued over limited participation, and turnover was largely led by crossings, accounting for a contribution of 24%. Food retailing sector and capital goods dominated turnover with a joint contribution of 41%. And the Sri Lankan rupee further appreciated against the greenback, with the buying rate down from 316.75 to 313.37 today, and the selling rate at 330.50 compared to 334.20 yesterday. Here's a look at the rupee exchange rate against other major currencies. Now, oil prices rose further today to trade in the range of $81 to $85 after OPEC Plus plans to cut more production jolted markets yesterday. The attention has now shifted to demand trends and the impact of higher prices in the global economy. OPEC Plus production curbs led most analysts to raise their Brent oil price forecasts to around $100 per barrel by year-end.
Brent crude futures were up 68 cents or 0.08% to $85.61 a barrel. The US West Texas Intermediate crude futures were trading at $81.10 a barrel, up 69 cents or 0.85%. Both benchmarks jumped more than 6% yesterday after the Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries and Allies, including Russia, collectively known as OPEC Plus, rocked markets with Sunday's announcement of voluntary production cuts of 1.66 million barrels per day from May until the end of 2023. The latest pledges bring the total volume of cuts by OPEC Plus to 3.66 million barrels per day, including a 2 million barrel cut last October, equal to about 3.7% of the global demand. Analysts project oil prices can easily rise above $100 a barrel. The news added to investor worries about higher costs for businesses and consumers, raising fears of an inflationary jolt in the world economy from rising oil prices will result in more rate hikes.
And that's all from us. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.